Boti Nagy, probably most famously known as the best basketball reporter in Australia.
Oh, certainly at the Advertiser.
At the Advertiser, sure, and you know, the local Messenger, I think every now and then does give you a run for the money. But you know, we work with what we've got as a fan and a reader of the Advertiser, don't we? So,
yep.
The league. I want to ask you about the league, and you had an interesting column the other day talking about let's focus on the positives rather than the negatives. It seems the Australian way to always cut down the tall poppy, the thing that's trying to get back up and be successful, and basketball seems a bit of an easy target. Do you think with teams like the Sixers are putting on the floor this year, the Dragons, the Tigers, the talent that's out there, that we should be proud of basketball in this country, and how do you just see ways of fixing it to get that out to the footballer public or the rugby public?
Firstly, the article I wrote really was aimed at the mainstream media, which doesn't support basketball. I wasn't really having a crack at other basketball writers, although there's one or two that are fairly negative. But I just think that it's almost like anyone that feels like having a cheap shot can have a crack at the NBL, and it's an easy target. You just say, oh, Sydney's bankrupt and Brisbane's bankrupt and Singapore put out this is a basket case, very funny, and they get their shots off. And I'm talking about people like Peter Spider Everett. He was on PTI, pardon the interruption, Australia on ESPN, and he's talking there about, oh yeah, the league's gone. And I was like, I'm sorry, but what would you know about it? Honestly, come from a position of knowledge. And I'm talking about Sunday columnists in various newspapers that don't follow our sport, don't support our sport, and just use the NBL as a tagline, as the end of the joke. They're travelling as bad as the NBL, ho ho. And the reality is that the league is in bad shape in terms of the perception by the public, and this is the reason that it's happening. And now, if I'm a sponsor and I want to get on board, and I'm reading all this negative crap, I'm going to be inclined not to do it. Yeah. So that's the thing that bothers me. Yes, the league has been in better shape. 15 years ago it was in way better shape when it could get 15,000 people at Melbourne Tennis Centre for a grand final. Yeah, sure, we were in better shape. The people running the league took their eyes off the ball. There's been some heinous decisions made at management level with what's going on with the league. We have to accept that that's that. Okay, so what do? You just wallow in that, or do we move forward? Now, I think there's a lot of other ways that we could be pushing the sport. As you've already mentioned, that with 3 teams gone, there's a lot more talent available to the 10 teams that exist. So this league will probably be as strong as ever in the 31st season. Yes. The teams look at Wollongong as a prime example. They were a battler last season. Dusty Reichardt and Glenn Seville fall into their lap, so immediately they're a much better side than they were 12 months ago.
And a guy like Luke Kendall hasn't even got a job because
Okay, so that's where I'm going. That the league itself, the teams, this is going to be probably one of the best comps that we've seen in 31 years. This may be one of the very best seasons, because apart from everyone rating the Tigers as above all other teams, what we have is quite good parity. I would say that there are more than likely 7 teams after Melbourne Tigers that are really in the hunt, and maybe one that might struggle a little bit, and I'll leave the viewers of this to sort out who they think that is. But there's a lot of great players in the competition. We need clubs to again wake up to the fact that they need to get free-to-air television. Okay, first, for me it's a simple equation. Let the world know that the product is good. Get people to games, fill your venues, then go to your sponsors, then go to your television and say, we'd like you to just do our games, like Channel 9 in Adelaide, or Channel 7 or Channel 10 in Adelaide, just do 36ers games. So fans of the sport can just watch the 36ers, because for all intents and purposes, I don't think Fox is that great for us, because if Fox is showing Cairns versus Sydney Spirit, I'm a basketball fan. Likelihood is I'll be watching something else that night. I'll tune in and see what's going on. I want to see the 36ers.
Yeah. Is that where you think a lot of the forums, Oz Hoops, so on, get stuck into the NBL website about their inability to deliver game information, that sort of thing? You look at the NBA and you can almost watch every game. You're able to watch every game of the D-League off their internet. Is that something that you think the NBL should be looking at?
Absolutely.
Rather than waiting for Channel 10,
correct.
7, 9 to roll up to the doorstep and say, hey, we want to help you, go out there and be the forefront of the sport like the basketball was back in the day when it became successful. So do you think the NBL really needs to have a look at itself, or is it going to take people like Andrew Gay's putting his own TV show together to reinvigorate?
It's got to be both. Right now I think the NBL is treading water. It's almost like everyone knows that in 12 months time it's going to be different. We don't know how it's going to be different yet. That'll be apparent in a couple of weeks, but it's going to be different in 12 months time. So I get the general feeling that the NBL is just kind of treading water till we get there. Yeah, we've got Fox, we're unhappy that it's starting 6 weeks into the season, but we'll take what we can get, because that's as much as we can do right now. So that's the NBL mindset, I think, at the moment, until the thing changes in 12 months time, or sooner than that, obviously, when it's announced. And then I think we've got to get on the front foot. You've got to go to free-to-air television. People should be trying to get their team on TV in their market. Okay, so if we've got 36ers on TV in Adelaide, that's fantastic. That's what people want to see. The knowledge of the 36ers in 2002, when they won the championship and they were on free-to-air television, also they were on Fox at that time as well. When they won that championship, the knowledge across the board was so much greater than what it is now. Here we are, it's like 6-7 seasons later, and people go, oh yeah, 36ers, are they still going? How's that going? Oh, that league is not going all that well that I read all that rubbish about all the time, because no one is actually getting on board and saying we still have a fantastic league. It's into its 31st season. Yeah. It's had made just an absolute bucket load of mistakes over the years, but the product on the floor is still good. We've got to get people to that. We've got to get free-to-air to that, and then, as you say, we have got to be innovators and say, let's get this stuff on the internet. Let's get people access to watching games via the internet. Now, you don't have to rely on TV networks to push your product. Now, what you're doing right now, what Andrew Gaze is doing, what John Willie's doing with his podcast, what we're doing at the Advertiser with Adelaide Now, doing a little segment with 1 week with Brett Maher, 1 week Scott Nielsen, next time will probably be Jacob Holmes. Who knows? But there's other ways to get the information out. You don't have to be reliant on networks to do you a favour. Yeah. You've got to push their own product. I don't think the NBL is pushing itself enough. The fact that it has not had any sort of launch is, to me, rubbish. Mm-hmm. You've got to have some sort of launch and tell the world we're going. What they rely on is the clubs in the proven markets, such as Cairns, Perth, Adelaide, of course. They'll have a launch, and people will be behind them. But what about, did the Sydney Spirit have a launch? Yes, they did. No one knows anything about it. Yep. And I think that's wrong. And there needs to be some stuff driven by the NBL that needs to say, here we are, we're going for it, 31 years, and we're still out there even though teams have gone. Hey, 12 months ago, weren't we all saying we need some teams to go, that would help the league? Well, teams went. The manner in which they went is being portrayed now as the league being in trouble. But who knew that Eddie Groves' business was going to get in trouble? What did that have to do with the Brisbane Bullets? Who knew that Singapore were going to say it's too expensive for us to keep flying? How about you equalise the costs? And the NBL said no. Just Singapore says, okay, well, we'll still exist, but we'll play in our own. We'll find our own games in Asia. We'll play in the Brunei Cup. We'll play in tournaments. We'll do our own thing. There's nothing wrong there, but it's all being portrayed as this big disaster. And frankly, I don't think the NBL has picked up the ball and run with it, and it will fall to clubs to push it forward.
Yep. And last question.
Another one.
I know.
That one went for 17 and a half minutes.
Sorry, Boti. If we stop talking, we'd be able to ask more questions. That's a very simple process. Marzi's last year, like
Marzi, Brett.
The little guard, I think.
The dog with the calves.
With the shunky leg. As a fan, you look at to see what happened with Boston when Larry Bird left, to the Lakers when Magic left, to Chicago when Michael left. Having had a chance to go to a few preseason games and see Mr. Aaron Bruce running around the floor, do you think that the 36ers are going to fall into a hole like those clubs that I've just mentioned had when their legend, their leader, left the Pine?
I think you just answered your own question. If we were still in the previous regime, then Brett's departure, whenever that happens, if it's in 12 months' time or later, they'd be in big trouble if we're in the previous regime. But I think, as you said, Aaron Bruce is here. There's Jacob Holmes is here. Brad Hills. There's some young guys. There's some continuity going to happen now. We're at just for the